evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 48 of the MCW Cast. My name is Tara, and I am 1/3 of the co-hosting team here at the cast, and I'll be joined later on this episode by Legacy Larry Legend and MCW co-owner Dan McDevitt. Thank you all who are watching tonight on Facebook and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us so you get all of our updates. If you are listening on our podcast platform on Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, and CastBox, be sure that you follow along there too, so you get the same notifications each week when we post a new episode. Now, what a week it's been. Last week, we were just coming off Seasons Beatings on December 4th at the MCW Arena. And we had the opportunity to sit down with a star who made her debut at MCW that night. And I'm talking about Erica Lee. She was absolutely delightful in studio. So if you haven't checked out last week's episode, you better do so soon because in her words, it's a honking good time. So make sure you check that out. This week, we've brought another special guest who also made her MCW debut at Seasons Beatings, and I'm talking about Leila Gray. She went up against the MCW Women's Champion, Ray Lynn. Now, Ray Lynn, we've had on here before, and she has said over and over that she is a fighting champion. So make sure you stick around and hear what Leila Gray has to say before she faced her opponent, Ray Lynn, on December 4th at Seasons Beatings. We want to also thank our Coffee Club subscribers. It's been almost a year that you've been supplying us with coffee while we entertain you with our weekly podcast. We really thank you for your support. If you missed Seasons Beatings, be sure to check it out on mcwragetv.com. We've also posted the results on our social media platforms, Facebook, our website, mcwprowrestling.com as well. And you can also check it out on YouTube. We will have selected matches being posted, as well as some of the promos that we film backstage during the course of the event. While you're over there at YouTube, be sure to check out our Flashback Friday. This week, we're going to be bringing you from night one of Winter Blast back in 2020. Wasn't really that long ago, but boy, does it seem like it's been a while now. I'm talking about Action Andretti and Fernando Alvarado. Action Andretti has been very much in action lately. He was on Seasons Beatings, and you can look for him at December 30th's event, Last Call. So be sure to check out our Flashback Friday. We're going to pause here for a quick station identification break, and when we come back, we will be in studio with none other than Leila Gray.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast.
And we are live back in studio with our special guest, Leila Grey. Leila, welcome to the MCW Cast.
Thank you so much for having me today, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we were excited to have you here, and I was excited to see you in competition at MCW Seasons Beatings against Ray Lynn for the MCW Women's Championship.
That's right. What a way to make an MCW debut is to go right into a title match against our women's champion. That is pretty impressive.
You know, I actually was wondering about, now this is no shade, but I was like, what's her credentials? She's just coming in and getting a title bout, but Ray Lynn is a fighting champion. She wants competition, so.
She's been defending against,
everyone.
From all over.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the women that Ray's taken on are all women that are kind of making a name for themselves and making a way for themselves on the indies.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Well, we won't give you any spoilers here, so you're going to have to go to either Rage TV in the next week or so. It should be up there, and you can check it out, and I'm sure we'll post some highlight clips on our YouTube channel. So if you're not following us and subscribing, please make sure that you do. But that's how you're going to have to find out the action, because if you miss Seasons Beatings, I don't even know what to tell you.
Yeah,
you shouldn't.
It was a real banger, yeah.
It was. You know, I mean, the crowd is always great here, and as we've mentioned before on the podcast, we'll be relocating our training center and birthday parties to another facility. So, you know, we've really only got one more show here at the MCW Arena, and that's Thursday, December 30th, you know. So we'll be having shows and I'm really excited to be bringing our product to some new venues, and I think that's going to be really cool. But yeah, if you haven't gotten tickets, please get them, because this is it. This is history in the making.
That's right. This is it. But this is now, and Leila, you're our guest. So I understand You're from the New York area originally.
Yes, I am from Queens, New York.
Right on, Queens in the house. I lived in the Bronx for a few years, so not too far away.
Not too far away from here, but
Yeah.
it's too cold over there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so now you're down in
Now I'm down in
sunny-
Florida.
sunny Florida.
Yep, soaking up the sun. I was
Orlando area, right?
in Orlando, yeah. I originally had moved to Miami. I was there for about 5-6 years, and now recently moved to Orlando.
What took you to Miami from New York area?
Um,
The weather?
I would say I just kind of, well, yeah, the weather was the main factor. Not gonna lie, but I kind of just wanted to get away, just a fresh start.
Mhm.
I'm like that. I like to just reinvent myself, get away from everybody, clear my head. And it was supposed to be temporary. It was supposed to be for college. And I graduated like 4 years ago. And then I just stayed.
That is actually kind of how I became a New Yorker. I went to New York to go to school. I never finished. But I was like, hey, I like it up here. And I got bit by that New York City bug and stayed for 10 years. So, yeah, that can happen.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
I was up
that.
there from
That's really long.
2003 to 2013.
No kidding.
That's how long I lived there. And then I was back.
Wow.
But yeah, fun times up there. But I was going to say maybe the cost of living, because New York is quite the expensive city to live in. I can attest to that. But if you move from New York to Miami, that's not cheap living either.
It's not cheap living, but you know what? You get a way better place for the amount of money that you would pay in New York.
Yeah.
In New York, you'll pay $1,700 to live in a closet.
Like this,
Wow.
the size of this studio, smaller than this studio,
Yes.
and with a shared bathroom, on a floor, but it's location, Manhattan, right where the money's made. If you can get a little studio apartment there, you're
Right.
golden.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I say the further down south you go, the easier living than in a metropolitan like New York City. So
Now, what took you to Florida initially? Was that to go to college?
That was to go to college, yes. So I, just wanted a fresh start, wanted to get away from my friends because they were really bad influences.
they can be.
Okay. Valid.
So then I left to college to pursue my dreams. I've always knew I wanted to work in entertainment. So I'm like, let me just go study broadcasting and see where that leads me. Because I just always knew I wanted to work in television.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my fresh start. That was my opportunity to go reinvent myself and become Leila Grey.
Well, you have a very powerful voice.
Yeah,
As we all discussed.
probably one of the most powerful voices of any guest we've had on, honestly. And that shows in your training and tutelage up until this point. We've seen you pop up a couple times on AEW Dark. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that in itself are the credentials all that we needed to see why she was, why you fought against Ray Lynn for the championship.
This is true. And many victories on AEW, I might add. So, you've made several appearances, and I'm just looking over like the list of people that you've worked against and defeated. So, and
I don't know about defeated.
well, you got defeated
had some
or had
wins.
been, have had some wins. Yes, I've had some wins. But I want to go back for just a second, Larry.
Please take us back.
So I want to go back to your voice again.
Yes.
You have a wonderful quality to your voice. It's very rich.
Thank you.
And I want to ask, was this part of your musical background? I did do a
Yes.
little research. That's my job as a producer. I did a little
I
research.
appreciate it. Appreciate you looking into it. But yeah, music was my first passion. I started singing very, very young when I was 5 years old. I was greatly influenced by the late Selena. Really inspired me. And from then on, I just always wanted to get my hands on anything to do with entertainment. So I was involved in music and modeling, acting, dancing, and then later on, the broadcasting. So yeah, all of these things just kind of came together to create who I am today.
It's really interesting. And Tara, you and I have brought this up, kind of being theater kids ourselves. And we come from an era where we kind of had to keep it on the low, that we were into Cats and Rent and all of that stuff because...
Okay, I wasn't into Cats. I thought it was the worst musical I've ever seen. I'm
I
sorry.
just brought-
I just need to tell you this.
But I just brought that up because I saw you took the boys there. I saw the picture
It
that
was
you
the
posted.
worst musical. I'm going to see Tootsie on Sunday.
Well,
by the
that'll
way.
be a
But
lot
anyway,
better. But
um,
we are from an era where you kind of kept that on the low. It wasn't really discussed amongst the boys that you were, really into the theater and stuff like that. But now we are in an era where so many folks that have gotten into the industry can say, yes, I have a background in acting. Yes, it is the elements of acting and wrestling that attracted me to, pursue this as a path. And I think that's I think that can only benefit us all to discover, people that,
Absolutely. And I think that wrestlers should go and take some acting classes. If they're very serious about this, about perfecting this craft and, having the total package and their character nailed down, definitely take some acting classes.
Well, I know the Performance Center has like a course there on your daily grind at the Performance Center. You work out, then you go to promo class, I think it's called, and you're in there and you're getting up cold and doing the same things that you would probably do at Stella Adler Conservatory of Acting in New York City. So it behooves you, if you are listening right now and thinking of getting into the business, get yourself some classes, talk to yourself in the mirror, and have a voice as powerful sounding as Leila Gray's. And feel okay.
Well, we talked. Our guest last week, we had Erica Lee in studio, and she was also making her MCW debut at Seasons Beatings, and she's done a lot of cinematic promos and different vignettes, during the quarantine period, and to just kind of be active. Did you do anything similar to that? Were you doing any kind of cinematic type promos or generating buzz or anything like that?
Well, it's very interesting because I actually became a pro wrestler during COVID. So
you're new to this?
Oh yes, I'm new to this.
Oh wow, okay, right on.
Right? I mean, I don't like to tell too many people, but since we're here talking, having a good time. Yeah, so I made my debut last October of 2020. So when I made my debut, it was during like lockdown and all that stuff, and a small closed set, maybe like 5-10 people in there. So I mean, I wasn't working on too many promos during that time, but a lot of people were at home not training, and I spoke to my trainer. I'm like, hey, I'm still trying to go and get my work in, and and then those months that I kept training while everybody was at home, then I feel like everybody came back and I've just like surpassed them.
Leaps and bounds above them.
Yeah, like I was on another level already.
Right?
Now, who was your trainer? Who was responsible for your training?
My original trainer in Miami was JB Cool. He's a little smaller. He's not too well known like that, but very great.
That name sounds familiar to me. I mean, we're in the industry.
Did he have a training center there? Or?
Yes, it was called Fighting Evolution Wrestling. Then after there, I kind of moved around a bit. After that, I was training with Gangrel. For a few months.
He's great.
Yes, he's great. Before moving to Orlando, and now I train with Alex Porto.
Oh, Alex the Pug Porto. How about that? That's awesome.
Love him. Love him.
Does he have a place in Orlando? Like
yes.
a training center?
Yes, his school is called Pro Wrestling 2.0, and I am currently the women's champion.
You know what? Nice. That is so awesome because sometimes I remember Alex Porto's, time in WWF. And I remember just wondering, like, why'd they miss the ball with him? Like I felt like it was almost a precursor to Angle.
Right.
Just a couple years.
They did miss the ball with him.
Just a couple years too early before Angle, showed up and kind of took that ball and ran with it. But that's awesome that you were trained by, I mean, in my eyes, the great Alex Porto.
Yes, no, he's phenomenal. He's great. And he may not have had a long run in WWF, but, he's been everywhere. He's done a couple Japan tours, and I think he did work with WCW back then. And so he's been around, has a ton of knowledge.
And creating greatness. Obviously, continuing to, train is that's...
He's had a lot of talented ladies in that school. He has Santana Garrett, Chelsea Green. Wow. Yeah, he had some great ladies coming out of there.
That's awesome.
So you started your training in Miami and then kind of migrated over to Orlando.
Yes.
And that happens a lot of the times.
There's so much in Orlando, I guess, with the Performance Center.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It was closer, at that time when I moved. This past year I've been doing a lot of AEW, constantly traveling to Jacksonville. So that kind of played a part in the moving, and just a lot of the independent shows that I was doing out there or all in Central Florida. So, I mean, I kind of did that just to make my life easier. And, I knew that once I moved to Orlando, I'm like, it's a wrap now.
Oh yeah, you're in it to win it. If you're in Orlando, that's like MLW, the Performance Center.
Does MLW run out of there?
I know that they were doing a number of their tapings from Orlando. Now that the country has opened back up a little bit more, I think they did something in Philly not too long ago. But at one point, MLW did a series of tapings. The ones that Leo was on, he told me I was down in Orlando for those. So
is that how you kind of started getting in with doing a lot of the AEW Darks, like during because they were writing that, they were filming a lot of them?
Yeah, so since they were in Florida, they were looking for, I guess, a lot of local talent.
Mm-hmm.
So they reached out to me on Facebook, actually. I got a nice little message from somebody asking me if I was interested in going to Dark. And oh my God, it was crazy because at this time I had only been working for maybe like 4 months.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, am I ready for this? I don't know, but I'm going to take the opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but look, it's been almost a year and I'm still coming back. So,
yeah, and that's a
great
great
stuff.
I mean, those opportunities you can't pass up.
No, and it's put me on the map. You know, now people are starting to know who Leila Grey is.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely changed my life having those AEW Dark opportunities, and
that's how I saw you and kind of reached out to you. And
exactly.
was like, hey,
yeah. So, you know, from doing AEW, then I got the opportunity to wrestle for Mission Pro Wrestling, and then a lot of people watched that too. So that just kept opening doors, and I started working more out of state, and because that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm not just trying to be local. I'm not trying to be in Florida. I'm like thinking big. I like to be out of state. I'm trying to be out the country.
Right,
You know?
yeah, internationally known.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, and so much of this business is timing, you know,
Yeah.
being at the right place at the right time, or the right person sees your Facebook profile, or, you
It
know,
is.
happens to see a clip that somebody else put up or something. So, you know, it seems like you're reaping the benefits of being at the right place at the right time.
Thank you. And I mean, you know, I've always been like a hustler and a go-getter, and I love networking, and I'm always constantly sending out emails and promoting myself on social media. And you know, even before, when I had barely any matches under my belt, you know, my Instagram looked like I was popping.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
It works.
You know,
yeah.
I would put little 10-second clips. I'm like, even if the match wasn't that good, I found these 10 seconds that I look bomb.
and
that's
put
what
it
we're
up.
going to put over.
Yep,
And,
indeed.
but listen, that's part of like cutting through the white noise. You know, you did it with me because I get bombed, and we're only an indie. We're up there as probably one of the more reputable indie promotions.
In
but
23 years.
I get bombed with all the time, constantly, with people trying to work for me like nonstop. So it's kind of hard to cut through the white noise with me because it's so many people. But I can't even remember what it was, but it was something like that, clips or something that caught my attention.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what I mean? So that's what you need to do to kind of cut through the white noise to get people to notice you and continue to get yourself out there, you know?
That's right.
And that's
Absolutely.
what it's all
Because
about.
this is what people look for. You know, I spoke to somebody from PWI, and I asked them, what is it that they look for people to make their list and all that? And it's, you know, working for quality companies, having quality matches, your social media presence, they emphasized a lot. So you have to look like you're out there working and doing it, living it.
Yeah, we had Leo Rush is one of obviously one of our first students,
right, yeah.
but he was like he's a master at like social media. I mean, like when he was really breaking into the business, I mean, he was on social media all the time, and he was doing exactly what you were saying, you know,
Yeah.
posting little clips of videos, and here's where I'm going to be tonight, here's where I'm going to be next week, and really just putting that out there. And it's like, oh, we need this guy.
Because we have a lot of people that come through our training center, and a lot of it's because of our history of like Lita training with us and Mickey James going back, but then like Leo. And I've always, since Leo, to any of the new students, like, do what he did. Like, he was, 2 or 3 matches in, but he was pushing himself out there on social media like he was a freaking
It was
star.
almost laughable at first.
It
Like,
was.
you know,
A
you're
lot
like,
of guys did. Listen,
you know,
a lot of guys,
Seriously.
a lot of the guys
Yep.
that have been around, the veteran indie guys, would bust Leo's balls, and I would tell him, "Don't pay any attention.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
keep doing
what
that.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Keep
Yep.
doing that." And he would, and then within the first year, he's winning the Ring of Honor
Top prospect.
top prospect
Yep.
tournament.
Mhm.
Boom, signed with NXT, and I was like,
See?
I would tell him when a lot of the local guys would bust his, and you were right. They would. They
Mhm.
would bust his balls, but I would always be like, no, man, he gets it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he
Because
gets it.
it's
Doesn't
a new
Yeah.
environment where you
Yeah.
really can
Yeah, he
self-promote
did.
yourself.
I really think Leo doing a lot of the stuff he did got him noticed by PWG.
Oh, for
got him
sure.
Absolutely.
noticed.
For sure.
Yeah.
I
For
mean,
sure.
that, like I really believe that had a lot to do with his trajectory.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he
About how
marketed
fast.
himself. He
Yeah.
presented himself as a package, and I
Mhm.
think that's what's really important to be successful in this like digital age,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Because people are getting content from all over. Not
Mhm.
everybody's coming to a live event, you know, and
Yeah.
that's you have to think like you said. You were thinking globally. You
Yeah,
want to be,
yeah.
you know, you want to travel. You want to be out there. Well, you got to
Yes.
put yourself. The people wherever you want to go to need to know who you are.
Yeah.
you know.
And even before wrestling, you know, I came from an entertainment background, so
Mhm.
I already had that hustle in me, that networking, marketing myself. Because before I was working as a model in Miami doing music videos. And I was doing the same thing, just promoting myself, trying to get noticed by
Mhm.
casting directors and all that, so I can get, so I can get this booking and these music videos
That's
and
the
all
hustle.
that. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, the hustle and the grind never
Yep.
stops, and neither
So-
does the MCW cast. But we do need to pause for a little internet station identification. So stay with us. We're going to have more for you on the other side of the break.
Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
And we are back. You mentioned Selena as one of your musical influences. Who did you have in wrestling that you were influenced by?
So I just love the strong, powerful ladies. One of my first was China. So when I started wrestling, when I started watching wrestling, she was the one that was on TV all the time. So she definitely influenced me a lot. Then I got into, a few years later, I started getting into the other women. I love Victoria.
Mhm.
I love Jazz. Jazz is a badass. Mickey James, Melina, like I love that era.
I love that you love brunettes.
Yeah.
You know, because everyone that you've said is a darker haired woman. China, Victoria, Melina.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stand up for the brunettes, okay?
Yes, I always love that era, Gail Kim.
Mhm.
And it makes me so happy that, fast forward years later, they're still in the business and they're pushing women's wrestling and,
Yeah.
helping us.
And they've all really played a part in everyone that you mentioned.
Everyone that you
everyone
mentioned,
that you
yeah, was-
mentioned really played a big part in taking women from just being like TNA
100%. Yep.
and
Mhm.
lingerie matches
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
to
Yeah.
what it is
Yes.
now, to what you're doing, which is very respected.
And how about Victoria came in as a hoe? She was one of the that was her. I was at the Madison Square Garden show where she got power bombed. You
That's
were.
how she
Yeah,
got her
but-
start,
yeah,
or
yeah.
broken in there. In
Well,
W.
it was the Godfather becoming the Good Father.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and Victoria was one of his two hoes, and she took a devastating power bomb in Madison Square Garden, and before you know it, she had a job. They wanted her back, and she had very little training under her belt when that happened.
I didn't know that.
Oh
I did not know.
yeah,
that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
Don't knock being a hoe.
because you were.
I
You
was
were
a hoe
hoe.
too. I was a hoe. That was my first. Actually, my parents on the hoe train got me into radio. I did Wrestle Talk America with Devious Doc for a couple of years, and then that was what led
Oh,
me
you
to
got
here.
that from doing.
I
the
got
Ho
that
Train?
from there because
I thought you
afterwards.
got the Ho Train because you were with. No, you.
No, I
It was the
didn't
other
know
way
anything
around,
about
okay.
it. No,
What's the
I
hoe
just
train.
with the
Oh,
You're
okay.
dating yourself.
Yeah, we're
This-
we're
Do
old.
you remember the Godfather in WWE? This is going back 20 years.
He
Okay.
and he'd come out with the hat and
he was like a
cane
pimp.
Oh, because he's a pimp. Okay, so
And they
actual
would-
like pimps and hoes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Oh
like, I
my
didn't know if I
gosh,
was
you were so
I
lost.
didn't know if I was hearing this right.
No,
I'm
no,
like,
It's
yeah.
hard to believe
she
that
was
was
his hoe.
20 years
And she's like,
ago.
I was a hoe
I was
too. I'm like, wait, what?
Dan, there are
Yeah.
so many things that it's hard to believe
Because
that
the Attitude Era in wrestling happened. It
20
broke in what 96.
97, I'd say.
Stone
Uh,
Cold.
when
like
Brett-
Stone
when
Cold
Brett went over
NWO,
to
so that was
WC
97.
97,
Brett-
yeah. Brett left to WCW and
How crazy is it that like
Yeah.
how that is now like almost ancient history?
I know.
Like,
Let's not.
because it was
Now I
20
feel
some
old,
years
so
ago.
let's
Yeah.
not. Okay, but
But
yeah,
it
I was on
was.
the
It's
host train in
crazy. Like
'99.
Stone Cold
Yeah.
NWO. That was 23 years ago.
And
24
characters
years ago.
like The Godfather,
And
which
yeah,
was a
so the
pimp.
yeah.
And
he would have girls. The girls would come in and scantily clad.
and
Yeah,
And that's what they called them, the hose?
the
the
hose.
hose.
We
That's
were
okay.
we were the hose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
there was our dressing room. It would say hose.
No, Leila,
Like, I'm not making
Did it
this up.
really?
Yeah, I swear to God, it said hose.
They would be
So
so,
he would-
canceled for
a
doing
lot of the
that
time
today.
he would try to.
WWE would get canceled for having a hoe locker room.
But not only that, but what about the
Uh,
bit which he would try to pass the girls off to his
Yes.
opponent and be like, "We don't fight."
I had to distract the referee. I had to get in there and distract. What was the older guy? The guy that owned the bar.
Tim White.
Tim White.
Yeah.
I had to distract him. I had to shake and distract
Yeah.
him.
What about Eric Bischoff on Monday Night Raw having a hot lesbian action segment? And that's what they called it.
Yeah,
You know,
it was a different
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
a different time.
this
Yeah, and
was
it was.
all on Monday Night Raw. Yeah.
We might
But
get back
so
to those
all
days.
to go, but no, no way.
Well, NXT just got a TV 14 rating. They changed that.
You'll never go back to that. Not in this environment. No
Oh,
way.
there's not in the cancel
I don't think
environment. We
women
won't
would
go
take-
there.
I don't think it was
Well-
really.
What if they did it to the men? What if they started objectifying the men?
I don't think NXT is going in that direction.
Well, we-
I'm
They-
just
they
playing
just
devil's
became
advocate.
All
All of this-
colorful and paint
all of
Yeah,
splatters.
you're
Kinda
right.
good about
Back,
that.
all of this, right?
You're
All
not
of
about
this,
to bring the hose back.
But
all of this goes back to what we were talking about. How all of these women that she mentioned brought women out of
Yes.
out of that era, and out of being seen like that
Mhm.
right.
on wrestling to where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you mentioned Victoria being a hoe, but Mickey James was in the Impact, their debut, that pay-per-view that they had, TNA, and it was a lingerie battle royal.
Mm-mm.
And I trained
And
with
that was
Mickey.
what,
She
early
and I went all up
2000s?
and down
Yeah,
the East Coast
2001.
wrestling with each other. So
2001, I
it
think.
was, I had just broken my neck though when that happened. But it's interesting, the people that you named, they went through that kind of shady era where it's like really cringe, like, oh my God, I can't believe I had to do that. But they're still here, and they've really been a part of this evolution
Yeah.
of women's wrestling.
Absolutely.
Like they didn't leave when they were asked to wear lingerie, they stuck with it and made it something better. And I think that's
Yeah.
so powerful.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, I've asked you in the past. We've had these conversations because as a promoter of indie wrestling back then, we did those matches.
Oh, we did.
And I would say, I can't believe I used to ask girls like, "Hey, I need you to put this dress on, and you're going to rip them off, and you're all going to be in lingerie in front of 1,000 people."
Like, and
I can't believe, like, when you think of how things changed, but
Mhm.
like, I mean, we just did those matches on indies because that's what the WWE was putting on TV. It was like you're
That was the litmus.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
litmus test
And
for
the
what
thing
was
is,
acceptable.
at first, the first time you ever said you're going to do an evening gown match, I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do an evening gown match. And then I figured it out, and I was like, oh, there's psychology.
Well, there
And
is
I was-
psychology
And I
to
loved
it.
it because to me, I thought it was really theatrical because I wanted to be an actress when I was a kid, and I wanted to be an actress, a singer, or a model. But I figured it out. I was like, oh, I can make them want to see me win or lose or whatever and take my dress off, but I don't give it to them. And that to me was the most empowering thing ever. I was a heel always. So, I loved it. And I was like, and I would just watch it and I was fascinated by it. And I was determined to do the best damn evening gown match ever. So like, I didn't want to do it. But then I was like, all right, we got this. We can.
Yeah.
There is logic behind it. There is psychology behind it,
Especially if
Yeah.
you're trained, and you're trained,
Right,
by
yeah.
the Bruiser. You're not just some lingerie model. Like the one time at WrestleMania, they had the two Playboy Playmates.
Oh.
Remember the two girls? Okay, we're dating
See,
ourselves.
those are the things though. When people outside of wrestling think about women's wrestling, unfortunately, it's name things like that with two Playboy bunnies in the ring, probably making a disaster out of things.
Yeah.
That is what has tarnished people's image outside of professional wrestling. I feel
Of
like
women's wrestling.
of women's,
women's
wrestling,
wrestling,
right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Right.
oh, it's
The pillow fight at WrestleMania,
Yeah.
where they pull a bed out.
the gravy match.
Don't
yeah,
even start
I
on
mean,
it.
like I've wrestled in pudding, but
Yeah. Layla,
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
I had a question, Layla. And I asked this of a lot of our guests that maybe have gone, for a few years. You're kind of still in the first year of your career, but has there ever been a time where it just felt like you wanted to just be like throw in the towel and be like, you know what, let me get back to broadcasting or singing or just straight acting because this wrestling thing is like,
Well, I do have a little story. So stupid though.
Well,
last,
that's what you're here for. We can hear it.
last year, this was probably like a month or two after my debut, I did like a gimmick show.
Uh-huh.
And in the gimmick show, they had a bunch of different types of matches that, you know, you would pick out of a hat. And then the opponents would be picked out of a hat. So you don't know who your opponent's going to be or what stipulation's going to be. And I drew a 3 shots match against my trainer, actually. So, yeah, a 3 shots match. And it was real alcohol they were giving us.
Wow.
It wasn't like...
Most
Whoa.
states with an athletic commission would say no to that.
Yes, it wasn't like kayfabe. I thought it was, and then they were filling up these shots. Craziness. I don't even understand what the match was. Like, I just know they had us drinking.
So this was at like a bar show, I guess. An adult was it like adult themed show?
Not really. I don't know what the point of this was. This is just one of those things that I'm like, what the heck? Why did I even do this? So they give you a shot. I think the point is, you know, you knock the person down. Every time they get up, you have to take a shot or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, but I know that I took 3 shots and I was done because I'm not a drinker. Like,
And that's not
I mean,
safe.
Alcohol
That's not safe at
wrestling.
all.
safe. It's
Completely
not
unsafe,
safe.
right?
Yeah, I think he gave me like a suplex, and after that, I was done. I ran to the garbage can. Thank God this never got posted online. But
You were like, what am I doing?
yes, they brought the garbage can. I'm like still in the ring. Half my body's in the garbage can. I'm like, I just ran out mortified.
Yeah,
and then,
imagine.
my man, he had my back. He came down the steps like, I'll give you a real 3 shots match. So then he ended up doing the match with the guy. And I'm like, I'm outside freaking puking my brains out. I'm like, never again. And after that, I'm like, what is this shit?
Yeah, right? Like, what
This
am I
sounds like
involved in?
this sounds like some of Steve, like the what were they called, Tara? The shows that we do in Philly, the girls shows.
Oh, Steve O'Neill.
But what were the show? What was his company called? I can't
There
remember.
was WEW. There was
WEW.
Women's Extreme
Extreme
Wrestling,
Wrestling.
and then there was DWOW, Dangerous Women of Wrestling.
These,
So
yeah,
they
these were
they're-
in bars, and these were like all women shows. But a lot of time
Yes.
there was exotic dancers on the shows.
Yes.
So there would be real wrestling shows
Oh.
mixed with oil matches, mixed
Yes.
with all kinds of craziness that a lot of times we
Yeah.
would be like, what the
It
hell
was-
is this?
remember the one
this was in
we-
the, like early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s. We showed up at one place in Pennsylvania, and whatever license they had to run there, everything had to be a gimmick match. So we couldn't have any.
It was the commission.
Yeah.
The state athletic commission was going to shut the show
We
down.
couldn't have real wrestling. So
Because they didn't rest. So this is we talk about like commission states. So
Mhm.
like, yeah, the Pennsylvania athletic. So the promoter that was doing these shows at like bars didn't register. So they were like, well, if this is pro wrestling, we're gonna shut it down.
Yeah.
So we got there, and even though like Kim and Tara and like
And
Mickey
Mickey.
James, because Mickey
Yeah,
trained
we
with
were all-
us.
we all
Mickey
rode
James
together.
trained with us. So this was in the early part of her career. So we're like, well, okay. So the promoter's like, hey man, like we can't do any pro wrestling. Like the commission's gonna.
And
shut
girls
it
were
down.
bailing. So Kim and I had to wrestle 3 times. We did like a
Yeah.
shaving cream match, a belt match, and a pillow fight.
Yeah, this.
Like, because it was like
They were interesting, too.
best out of 3 or whatever. And I was like, I'm not oil wrestling. I just remember being like, I'm not doing that. Okay, like I'll do
Yeah.
this, but I'm not doing that because I really wanted I wanted to be taken seriously, and I didn't want that kind of.
So we pretty much left all of those shows thinking, what the hell did we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
do?
I've
Yeah.
been there. I
Like, well,
completely
Yeah,
have been
after
there.
that 3 shots match, I'm like, I'm not doing nothing like this ever again. This is
Well,
stupid.
we did a ton of bar shows where the girls would be drinking, and like Dan was saying about
I'd get
the
mad because as a guy,
the
I
dancers.
wrestled. I've been doing this,
Yeah.
but I wrestled for like 15 years. That's how I got into wrestling. So that to me is something, and as a promoter, I don't talk. I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just so dangerous.
Oh my god!
Like,
And they
agree.
weren't
You get it,
properly
you know?
trained either.
Yeah.
That was the best
that was
part.
the
They're
thing,
like
yeah. So
doing shots in
so I
their
wouldn't
underwear.
let Steve in with any.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let them book those girls with like any of my girls.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. Not only are they not trained, but they're getting drunk.
With the
Before they go
customer,
in the
like,
ring
with
with the
the
customer.
fans.
Like, I'm not letting them get in there and drop one of my girls
And the
on their head
fans
or
would
something
rub
like
them
that.
down with oil. They would auction them off. It was just
Jesus.
It was
It was a
really
different time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, totally a different time.
It was a different time. So listen, you mentioned your man.
Yes.
You were, a wrestling relationship. Your husband husband, right?
Yes.
What's his name?
His name is Luke Curtis.
Okay.
Curtis.
Right on.
Certified Luke Curtis.
There you go. We love the superlative. So if he's
Yeah.
certified, let us know.
Now,
Yes.
did you were you guys together before wrestling, or did you meet him in wrestling? Or
We were together before wrestling. So we met at the time I was bartending in Miami. He was working as a mechanic and doing commercial air conditioning. So, you know, like guys that work in construction, stuff like that, they like to drink every day after work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I met him. He would come to my bar and, you know, we became friends. We were friends for like a year before we actually started dating. And we were dating probably for a year before we started wrestling. So yeah, it was my idea. I'm the one that wanted to do the wrestler,
yeah.
even though he was a amateur wrestler,
Okay.
like growing up. So yeah, he has a lot of years of amateur wrestling and, you know, competing and doing all that stuff. So I told him I wanted to do professional wrestling. And at first he thought it was kind of silly because when you grow up as an amateur wrestler, they kind of instill that
Yeah.
in you.
Yeah.
That's how RJ was. He was like, I'm not letting nobody beat me.
Yeah.
Remember RJ at first? He's like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to beat me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
'cause I can stretch him.
Yeah.
You know, that's the mentality.
Yeah, and all the years, the hundreds of people that I've trained through the school, anytime someone was like a shoot wrestler, Leo Rush.
Mhm.
Leo was he was an All-American
So was
amateur wrestler.
So was
So
Patrick.
yeah, so was Patrick. So I've always had no, you guys. Like they come in and they're like, yeah, I'm not letting this guy beat me.
Yeah. You know, like,
It doesn't work.
If he's
It doesn't
beating
work.
me, he's
like
going to beat me.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah.
not
So
letting him, you
yeah,
know?
it's a different mentality to break them from a
Yeah.
trainer standpoint to
Yeah.
get them to kind of understand. Okay, listen, you got it back.
Absolutely.
You know.
So I kept telling him about the wrestling, and you know, at first it was taking us some time to go. I had already spoke to the school like 3 months ago, and I'm like, and we still haven't gone. So one day I'm like, listen, we have to go today. If we don't go today, we're never gonna do this. So I dragged him out of bed. Then we did that first class, and we walked out of there like, we're going to the WWE.
Yeah, you got
And-
bit.
and
You
it-
got bit by the wrestling
Yep,
bug
it was
right
over.
away.
It was over.
Yeah.
Even though it was really hard because, you know, most of my athletic background is like dancing and stuff like that. Even though I did play some sports, I played soccer, I did swimming, I did track, but not long enough where I considered myself like an athlete like that.
Yeah.
So, and I started wrestling later on. I was 29.
Oh,
I was 27 when I started.
Yeah.
So
29 is a magical number.
really,
Yes.
it's
But it's hard. You know, you go almost 30 years old trying to learn how to take bumps and do all this stuff. And
Yeah, 10 years makes a big.
it
difference,
really
Yeah.
you
does.
know?
yeah, and I
Yeah.
wasn't like a daredevil child who would just like jump off of things. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hop over fences and stuff. but so yeah, it was really, really challenging. But I mean, the fact that we stuck together through this, like, I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for him, because there was a lot of times that I wanted to quit. There's a lot of times I would leave training like in tears because I couldn't get suplexes because I was scared to take high bumps and, you know, do all this stuff. And it was really, really frustrating for me.
And the bumps, like
Yeah.
people have no idea. I mean, I started training when I was 18, 19. People have no idea what the toll that the business takes. Everybody wants to discount it. Everybody wants to, oh, it's fake. It's this and that. You have no idea.
It's like putting
Yeah.
yourself through a mini car wreck.
a car wreck
That's
every day.
exactly what
like
it is, the
you're going to
traction,
training
you
every day,
know?
learning how to do this, and every
Yeah.
day you're in a car
Ka-zoom,
accident.
ka-zoom,
Yeah, uh-huh.
over and
And-
over.
Multiple. You know,
Yeah.
not just one, like multiple. You
Yeah.
go and train and you're in multiple car accidents.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? Just to learn how to fall.
And
So-
you know, women's bodies are different.
Different.
They,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, when you're 5 foot something, and you know,
Well, we talked about this,
Yeah.
how most wrestling rings are made. The heavier you are, the more you can make the ring
Yeah.
flex. So for women who are lighter,
yeah,
the bumps are harder on you
Yeah.
because you're not, you know,
And where
depending
the
on how the
ropes
rings
hit
are not.
us.
Yeah.
Like,
the
I
ropes
Oh
mean,
my
are the
God.
worst.
The
we're
ropes.
short. Like, well, not we. I mean, like a lot of women
Yeah.
wrestlers are not particularly tall, and
Yeah.
so the ropes hit in a much different spot, and
Yeah.
they're. I remember that. Like that hurt the worst. Like I just remember crying like at
you have
night.
bruises.
Oh my God, the big bruises, and it would hurt. I was a landscaper when I got into wrestling, so like I had to go do manual labor every day. So I'd beat myself up at night, then go do manual labor. But hitting the ropes just,
Hitting
that
the
was
ropes,
so
the
hard.
bumps. I took that first bump. I'm like, man, am I sure I want to do this? Am I sure I want to do this with my life? But yeah, I just stuck through it. I knew I wasn't gonna quit. I did not want to quit because I've quit a lot of things before. So I'm like, no, I have to do this.
Stick with it.
Stick with it, yeah. And even though I was doing a bunch of stuff before, I don't think I've ever been this dedicated to anything.
Well, it's interesting that you and your husband got into wrestling together.
Yeah, that is
like
neat.
There's lots of relationships in wrestling that generally seem to occur after they get into the business,
Yeah.
and then they, wind up working together and
So
hook up or whatever.
He wasn't a fan of pro wrestling, I'm assuming, like the way you described
was a fan. He was a fan. He did grow up watching it, like many.
Okay.
He loved John Cena and Kurt Angle, and especially Kurt Angle because since
Obviously,
he was an
right,
amateur wrestler,
obviously.
yeah.
That makes
He
sense.
said at his wrestling school they always had like Kurt Angle on the walls and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of people that he did like. He loves Eddie. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. So he was a fan growing up, but then he stopped watching it, like, a lot of people do as well. And he kept doing his amateur wrestling until that stopped after, like, high school. And then, and then I brought him back. And, we always talk about how everything just happened. And we're like, man, we really are meant to be. He was a wrestler, and then he got, like, distracted, fell off the path, probably dating these young girls and stuff, whatever. They steer you away from your goals.
That they do.
That they do.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So, that was like his dream to wrestle and do all that, and that ended up being cut. And then then we got together, and now we have wrestling back in our lives, and we get to do this together. We're on the road together. We travel. We have a dog, which we got when we started wrestling. We named him Kofi.
Oh,
After Kofi Kingston.
I
That's
love
awesome.
it.
What kind of
Yes.
dog?
He's a mixture. He's his colors are black, white, and brown. We believe he's like a Chihuahua with like a wiener dog or something.
A hot dog? I
Okay.
mean, a dachshund.
A dachshund,
Yeah, yeah.
He's long and skinny, but he doesn't have the short legs.
I gotta tell you, mutts are often the best dogs.
Yeah.
He's the
As opposed to like a pedigree. I mean,
Yeah.
and you get the pedigree, your golden retriever, your Labrador, but sometimes when you find a mixed breed mutt, they have the biggest personalities.
He
They
does.
sometimes need the most care. So
Yeah.
I'm giving you the kudos for rescue. I don't know if you rescued him or how he came into your life or they came into your life, but yeah, I love a rescued a mixed breed dog.
Yeah.
I had one follow up real quick because we are just tearing
I
through this
know.
interview. You're a great
I
subject
know.
to speak to. A follow up to a time where maybe you were thinking, I don't want to be involved in this, but you said you never really wanted to quit. Have you ever had an instance where you were in the ring with someone that you felt was not being as professional as maybe they presented themselves at first, where you actually thought someone was like trying to
Shoot on you.
shoot
Take
on you,
liberties
get,
with
take
you?
liberties, get cute? Like, have you ever
Hell
experienced?
yeah, this happened recently. Actually, I had a had a show a few weeks ago, and yeah, man, this girl was
Getting rough.
she was getting me pretty good. Once her comeback came and she came with those lines, I just saw it in her face. I'm like, this girl does not like me. And yeah, man, no. So stuff like that happens, unfortunately, in the business. So aside from people stiffing you, then there's also people that, don't really want to take your moves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens in that match too, and it was definitely very frustrating. But that does not happen often. That was like the only match that I ever dealt with that. I've had people that were stiff, but that's just the way that they work. I never felt like it was on purpose.
Like I don't
Or
like
dangerous.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, or dangerous. Yeah, that's just the way that they work. But this one girl, nah, man.
It's interesting.
There's something there.
Just hearing you talk through that, it's interesting because that's kind of something that's very, specific to our entertainment industry.
Right.
Like you can't ever be like on stage with someone or like doing a movie with someone and then they just decide to like, I don't like her, I'm gonna make
I'm
her
gonna make
job
an
harder.
example out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin,
Here's your
but that,
receipt.
Yeah.
but that was a
Yeah.
tragedy. Yeah, I know.
Just ask him. He didn't
Yeah.
pull
Yeah,
the
he did pull the trigger.
trigger.
And I was always like trained to, work lighter and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, once I saw how she was coming at me, I'm like, oh, it's on.
And wrestling's weird though too, man. Like you get weird jealousies from people.
Oh yeah.
So you might like someone like you.
A year in.
A year in,
Already
and you're
on
kinda
AEW,
getting,
yeah.
getting places, getting opportunities that other aren't. Like wrestling, that's the part of wrestling I've never liked though. Like the weird jealousy where people then You know what I
Make
mean?
an
Like,
example.
Yeah,
Like
this and
out
that,
of
it's,
a
like,
young
stupid.
up and coming, like, you know.
Yeah, like who's this girl? Like Leo. I mean, go back to Leo Rush. He ate so much crap when he was starting because he was getting. I saw it. You know, just in our area. You know what I mean?
Oh,
in
yeah.
the environment, like guys, like who is this kid, man? He's freaking getting Ring of Honor and this and that. And I'm like, he's out there hustling, doing his thing. It's weird. You
It
get
is
that
weird.
weird
He's
jealousy.
one of the best workers I've ever seen.
Leo.
Yeah.
He's really talented, man.
Yeah.
I've trained a couple hundred people in 30 years doing this and had a school and had a lot of people that are really successful. But I always, when people ask me about him and Patrick, Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him
which,
up.
You know, I'm not gonna not acknowledge him.
Because he got there first, actually.
Yeah, he
You know?
did, and the two of them trained together. And those two kids are probably two of the most athletically gifted people that I've ever had train under me.
Yeah.
And I knew from day one they both had something special because of their work ethic. I would I always tell, like, they would they would show up. They would show up. It started them showing up a little bit early, and then they would start calling me, and like guys like RJ would be like, "Leave Dan alone, don't bug him." And then they'd say, "Hey, can we get keys or can we get into because they would hitchhike and a lot of stuff and catch rides from DC because they didn't have cars. They were 17, 18.
Yeah.
And so they like, the best we
right.
can do is get up there 2 or 3 hours early. We can get up there, and I'd say, okay, go ahead in. And then they'd go in hours early. But I just loved was like, man, these two kids want it so bad.
That
Yeah.
dedication.
And in normal circumstances, I would have said, no, I'm not just going to let you go into the training center 5 hours early. You might hurt yourself.
Right.
But I just like, they were so hungry. They were so hungry
Yeah.
that I was like, I can't say no to them. Like, I just like, all right, I'm going to let them go.
Yeah.
So that, heart and desire and just, both of them. But yeah, they're probably the two of the most.
You know who I love also? Another one of your old students, Renee Michelle.
Yes.
She is one of my favorites.
And
She's helped me out a lot, too.
She's great.
Have you gotten to wrestle her?
Yeah, she was actually one of my first matches. And,
You know what? That's how I saw you.
yeah.
She was sharing your stuff. I think she was retweeting. I think she was sharing
Yeah,
stuff about you.
Maybe.
A
Renee's
picture or
a powerhouse
something?
on Twitter, too, on social media.
I think that's
Yeah.
how I do, and then I saw some of your stuff, and then I think that's through how
Yeah.
I found. But
We have a match coming up.
So Renee was in that class with Leo and Patrick.
Yeah, she
Yep.
told me.
Renee was in that class
What a
with Leo
gold
and
mine
Patrick.
that was, looking back on it.
And I fought for Renee a lot too. Well, if you know her, like, because Renee was a girl that when she started coming around, she got found because she was doing modeling. And I fought for Renee a lot because a lot of people like discounted her, but I could tell she had heart. And she just, when she was training in that class too, and I talk about her a lot the same way, she kept showing up, and a lot of people would be like, oh, she's just a freaking model. She doesn't want to do this, but she kept showing up. And I, see like, man, she keeps showing up. And no matter how much people try to like talk down to her,
She is
She
not
just-
giving up.
Right.
she
Yep.
didn't give up. So
And then she went
she's
to
great.
Japan.
Chikusa.
No, I don't think people took her seriously because she wasn't a wrestling fan.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they'd say, oh, this try to bring more of this person's character into your promo. And she's like, I don't know who that is.
Right.
Because
So it made it-
they're
yeah.
70 now.
But
like,
you know
I don't
what?
know them.
And you know who I always say, like, I always bring her up is Lita. When
Miss
Amy,
Congeniality.
when Amy was, because Amy got, like Matt and Jeff asked me to work with her. This is like late '90s, because they had got signed and went on the road full time, and she had just done Mexico, and her and Matt and Amy had started seeing each other, and Matt was like, hey, can this girl come up and work with you? Like she just had a little bit of training, and same thing, like, and I would train with Amy a lot, because there's always, especially back then, I think it's probably better now, culturally things have changed, but back then it was always like, man, a girl's going to go to a wrestling school and every guy's going to be trying to sleep with her, which is part of the reason, like, why Matt was like, hey,
Let me send her someplace where I
well,
know that they're not.
like, I know Dan's
know,
gonna,
Adam
but
Flash isn't going to be down. I know
But
that was a
Amy,
terrible thing
Amy
to say.
didn't have
Good
Lita. She wasn't really a fan.
Mhm.
Like, so I remember like in training with her, it does make it a little more difficult when you can't reference, and you're trying to reference people.
Right.
So
Yeah, I had to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if you want it and you have the desire and
Mhm.
passion,
You
like
do it.
you like, and Renee would go and go back and look at the history and learn. So yeah, she's done really. I'm really proud of what she's done.
Love her.
You know what? I've got another question for you. I'm sorry for monopolizing Layla's time,
That's
but
okay.
gears are just turning in my head. Things you're saying are making me think. As far as the future and goals, are there any kind of bucket list opponents? You know, I know you have the upcoming match with Renee Michelle, but are there any, people that are doing it right now out there that you really are kind of chomping at the bit to get into the ring with, to learn from, or just create magic with?
Yeah, there are some people. One of my favorite independent wrestlers is La Rosa Negra.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I love her twerking.
Yeah.
That's not all I love about her. I love her energy, but with her.
You know, I danced in my intro, and
Oh
I
my
got that
God.
from her.
I
she
can
helped
imagine.
me. She helped me put my entrance together. So
That would be great.
Yeah.
I would love to see
I
that.
don't twerk, but I do a little something.
I haven't seen her in so long, but she's just a ball of energy, and that would.
Yeah.
I would love to see La Rosa Negra.
Yeah,
you know?
I did like a little training seminar with her for a week, and man, she is tough. At that time I never met like a woman so like fierce and vicious, and
Great way to describe her. Fierce.
yeah, she she just brings it. Like,
Mhm.
she was doing things to me, chops and stuff. I'm like, damn, this tiny woman is so strong and like feisty and crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's one of my favorites. I love watching her. I love her energy, her charisma. I love her work. So she's definitely probably at the top of my list of independent wrestlers I want to work.
Well, you heard it right here on the MCW Cast. Leila Grey wants La Rosa Negra. So promoters out there in the world, let's speak it into existence because I want to see it.
Yes, book it.
Yes.
So we kind of skipped through the last break.
We
I guess
did, but
kinda
that's
gotta wrap
okay.
Yeah,
it
because
up.
it was a great
Right.
conversation.
Yeah,
we talked
that's
about this,
fine.
that, and the third, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But we have to close out, and I do want to bring up our next show. Of course, is December 30th. It's a Thursday night show, so
Last show at
parents,
the
bring your
MCW Arena.
kids because they'll be bouncing off the walls. They'll be off school for a week and a half, so bring them on out. Thursday night, December 30th, right here at the MCW Arena. Yes.
And this is like WWE used to do this. It would be like the post Christmas show.
WWE is going to be here.
It's
Yeah.
so it's
before.
the
night
the
before.
point I'm trying to make is that
Yeah.
these are great stocking stuffers. You wait
Yeah.
till like Christmas morning if you
So if you're
celebrate
a wrestling
Christmas.
fan in the
you pull
Baltimore
the-
area, yeah.
Okay, I don't know what stockings you got as a kid, but my stockings never had WWE tickets in it.
Okay, mine didn't either, but I'm just saying. Like, I feel like WWE used to say it makes a
Alright.
great stocking stuffer. You know?
But I will say, independent wrestling will not break the wallet. So
Hey.
our tickets make a great stocking stuffer. So
Oh, I see what you're doing
See
there because
that?
WWE was too expensive for
Hey,
your family when you had a big family. And
I did not have a big
Yeah,
family. I had
and
a poor
speaking of,
family.
we've talked a lot about AEW.
I hear you.
AEW. So
Yeah.
on the 30th, you can if you want to go to both the night before First Mariner Arena, WWE's there for a house show, and then at our show, Brian Cage and the Acclaimed from AEW will be here.
Oh, Max
Oh.
Caster will be here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
I've
and
gotta
they'll both be in action. Sometimes.
Bowens too?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
The Acclaimed
okay.
is taking on.
man.
Wow, I'm coming.
The Acclaimed is taking on Seduce and Destroy, and Brian Cage is taking on Action Andretti.
Hot dog.
So you don't want to miss this, so get your tickets at mcwprowrestling.com or our local ticket outlet at Hideaway Collectibles on Hollywood Avenue, where you can get not only your MCW ticket, but all the cool collectibles that you want to get. And now we just told you who was going to be here, so I bet you maybe there's some collectibles you might want to get if you're interested in doing the meet and greet.
Indeed. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the MCW Cast. Leila, we want to thank you once again for joining us on this edition and for gracing the MCW Arena with your presence before we close the doors forever.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
For Dan McDevitt and the lovely Tara, I'm Larry Legend. We'll see you next week for another exciting, insightful edition of the MCW Cast.
You make me